So I'm originally from South Florida. I've been a mortgage lender since 1998. At the time, to get licensed as a mortgage lender was 2.5 days, which is insane. Half day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, I was licensed.
Granted, it's not that much harder now. It's
really not. Barrier to entry is minimal. So got my license, started working with these two guys, immediately was closing 5-6 transactions a month. So that was how I started. 08, 09 came, we rode a strong wave going into 08, 09. I was still in South Florida. Housing market collapsed. I lost everything, foreclosure, bankruptcy, lost it all. And slowly built that back up. And then moved to Colorado 13 years ago. Didn't know a single person and built our business from zero to being now number one locally in 13 years.
Hey guys, welcome to the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran. I'm an Oregon and Washington realtor, and I invest in multifamily and short-term rentals.
And I'm your co-host, Jordan Lee. I'm a mortgage lender based here in Portland, licensed in about 9 states. And I also invest in single family, and we actually now have a duplex together.
Yeah, I know. This is like the 5th episode we've talked about it. But hey, Jordan, who did we interview today?
We interviewed a super interesting guest that reached out to us from social media. He found us on the gram, and his name's Brian Manning, and he's the top producing loan officer in the Boulder, Colorado market.
Yeah, no, I loved his insights in terms of how he, kind of built his business and also his thoughts on investment. Him starting in itself and then kind of losing everything and still having
he's got the classic American comeback story, right?
Yeah.
Lost everything in 08, 09 and then rebuilt.
Yeah, he had the goal to kind of get started again. Lots of Michael Jordan references, which I love. So,
I feel like it's a little outdated. He should be going for the Caitlin Clark references these days.
Yeah. There you go. But we got a really great episode. Hopefully you can tune in. Hey guys, welcome to episode 63 of the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran.
And I'm your co-host, Jordan Lee here, and we're super excited to host Brian Manning out of Boulder, Colorado. Hey, Brian, do you mind just giving us like a quick background story of, where you grew up, like what brought you to Boulder, and then kind of your journey into real estate?
Absolutely. So first of all, Steve, Jordan, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be here. 63 podcasts, that's a lot of work to get that far into this. So congratulations on your commitment of really, getting this far into the podcast. I think it's something that's easy to give up on relatively quickly. So just congrats on having some traction and being committed into doing this. Let's see a little background. So I'm originally from South Florida. I've been a mortgage lender since 1998.
Oh, wow.
Started in 98 with a couple guys that owned a RE/MAX office. And they were sick of giving their mortgage business to another mortgage lender. At the time, it was all brokers. So they said, well, hey, let's open a mortgage company. And at the time, my girlfriend was the secretary in the RE/MAX office. And she told me about these two guys. And I said, maybe I could work for them. And she said, maybe you can. So I called them. I asked them if I could work for them. They said, yeah, go get licensed. At the time, to get licensed as a mortgage lender was 2.5 days, which is insane. Half day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, I was licensed.
Granted, it's not that much harder now. It's
really not. It's really not. Yeah, the barrier to entry is minimal. So got my license, started working with these two guys. They were the top producers there. Immediately was closing 5-6 transactions a month. I messed up every loan. I made every mistake possible. But it was the best way to learn because I did applications with people. I did all my own processing. At the time, everything had to be signed by hand. You had to go sit down with people at their kitchen table and sign documents with them in person. And if you want to learn how to build relationships, negotiate on the fly, you sit with people in their dining room or kitchen 5 nights a week, and you'll learn all of those things really quickly. So that was how I started. 08, 09 came. We rode a strong wave going into 08, 09. I was still in South Florida. Housing market collapsed. I lost everything, foreclosure, bankruptcy, lost it all. It's just, unfortunately, probably about half of my clients also had foreclosures, short sales. It was just a byproduct of the market that we were in. and slowly built that back up, and then moved to Colorado 13 years ago. Moved to Colorado because my wife is a CPA. She wanted to go back to school and get her PhD in accounting. She got accepted to a bunch of schools, and CU Boulder was one of them. So we've learned in October that she was accepted to the program, and then July we're out the door. So this July will be 13 years. So moved to Colorado, didn't know a single person, and built our business from zero to being now number one locally in 13 years. So we've been mortgage lending for a long time. It's always been mortgage lending, sprinkled in with real estate investing as well. And I think it's been a good journey. And I'm not giving up yet. I think we have a lot of hard work and fun and winning in front of us.
Yeah, I wanted to jump back to '08. You were talking
Yeah.
about losing everything, going to bankruptcy, getting foreclosed on. What did you have at that time that you foreclosed on? Was it just your personal house, or?
Oh no, personal house, investment properties, vacant land. I'm going to tell you one thing really quick. One of the homes that I lost, there's an area in Florida, it's called Bal Harbor. I owned a unit in One Bal Harbor. So when that condo sold, foreclosure courthouse steps, I think it sold for like $670,000. I just looked the other day, that property just sold for 3.7 million.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I understand that, yeah, obviously different parts of the country were hit harder in '08, '09, and South Florida being one of the ones that was hit pretty hard.
Yep.
Help us understand, like, what were these properties, were they speculative? Were they super leveraged? Did you not have tenants, or what was the, I guess, the cost?
No, I mean, so everything was leveraged, but everything that I bought did have a down payment. So I had a mortgage on it, but nothing was over leveraged. Nothing was 100% financing. The challenge at the time was just the ripple effect financially in South Florida was impacted by employment as well. So even if you were conservatively leveraged, if people stop paying rent, and that happens on a lot of your properties, and you don't have enough savings, then you could run into a challenge. So, you have to have a certain amount of reserves built up, but I had a lot of rental properties at the time. So there's probably sheer volume of amount of real estate that I owned at the time that just kind of became problematic. I mean, even my personal primary residence, for example, lost 50% in value at the time. Yeah.
So it was more of like just a matter of not being able to make the payments in general, and being in the industry where most of your income is generated from that same. I'm guessing your volume dropped significantly at that time too.
Almost to zero. The challenge at the time is that values were dropping relatively quickly. A lot of lenders had pulled out of Florida. You couldn't get an appraisal at the time. So no matter how good you were, no matter who you knew, you couldn't originate loans. Everything was kind of at a standstill. So that's the other problem. If you have income and you go from, income to, we'll call it zero, that's impactful as well.
So even though, real estate had just totally burned up, you were like, doesn't matter, I'm still going to keep going with the mortgage world. I don't like, was it a matter of, I don't want to do anything else, or you still felt good about it, or what was the decision to keep moving forward in that field?
I mean, you think Michael Jordan ever lost a game? It's just,
I hear he missed a lot of game winners.
Yeah, it's just one of the things where you have to, winning is an internal battle, right? Winning is you're constantly having an internal dialogue with yourself, and wanting to give up is there all the time, right? Doubting yourself is wanting to give up is just there all the time. So you got to really dig deep in yourself and figure out, do I have the strength and the motivation and the will to keep going on? And, I looked at this situation and, okay, yes, as mortgage lenders, we were probably part of a catalyst in the situation. Of course, everyone around the world was. Investors were that were buying the mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage lenders were. Home buyers were. I'm not pointing a finger at anyone. But at the end of the day, it was kind of a group effort where the failure was caused. It wasn't just from me. So, even though I was beat up, to me, there's so much hope in the American dream. There's so much hope in owning real estate. The most amount of wealth for average people in America is created by owning real estate. Most people don't get wealthy in America through stocks, Bitcoin, et cetera. Most people get wealthy through appreciation, compound appreciation, and owning real estate. So regardless of what happened in '08, '09, I was then, and I still am, the the biggest believer you'll ever talk to that there's just such incredible value in owning real estate, primary residence, investment property, et cetera. So I just made, the conscious decision, like, we're just going to keep swinging the bat every single day. And, some days we're going to miss the ball and some days we're going to hit the ball and sometimes it's going to be a strike and sometimes it's a home run. And you just keep swinging the bat.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about like different laws in different countries and how one great thing about our country is that, when you have a bankruptcy or when your business has a bankruptcy, you're able to kind of go back and do it again. How long
Hmm.
did it take you to get from the point of, kind of losing everything to being able to like start investing again, start feeling like you had strong enough income, felt like you could reopen your own company type situation?
It's probably about 2 years. Yeah, I was really motivated. Losing everything is the mother of motivation. You have nowhere to go but up. So I was super motivated to really get back into it, to start accumulating assets again. And instead of just harping on the negativity of what happened to me, it was like 2 to 3 years, and I owned another house again, and I was already back looking at investments.
Nice. And, I just want to talk about the catalyst of moving to Boulder and trying to start your new business in an area that you know absolutely nobody. How
Yeah.
did somebody go about doing that? I mean, for us, for me as a realtor, I work super locally and I have my community in my sphere. Can you talk about how do you start a business from scratch in a brand new area with no customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what I've learned is the most important thing is to identify who your customer is.
Mm.
Who is your customer, right? Is your customer realtors, first-time home buyers, investors, mountain property second home buyers, cabins in the mountains, whatever your specialty is, who is your customer, right? My customer is the real estate agent. And we just became really crystal clear on who our customer was. So the way our team looks at it is our client is the real estate agent. Every single day, the buyer is interviewing us on behalf of the realtor, right? And however we perform for that buyer, they're going to go back to the realtor and report our performance. And then that realtor is going to make a decision of whether they want to keep hiring us. So we just became really crystal clear in the beginning of who our client is, and that was the focus. So the first thing I did, I moved here. I printed out a list of the top 100 agents, and I just started right at number one, and I just called them, and I literally said, I just moved here. I'd like to know if I could take you out for lunch. I don't know anything about the market. I'm not going to hit you up for business. I just want to learn about the market, right? Number one says to me, what are you doing right now? Come to my office in 10 minutes. Amazing, right? I never forget. Her name was Karen Bernardi. Went to her office. She's a beast, right? She's a huge producer. Met with her, and I think that her and I resonated because she's a cold caller, and I just called her out of the blue. Number two didn't return my phone call. Number three set a lunch appointment with me 2 days later, and became one of my best friends ever. So I realized there that part of this is about building relationships and just going to meet with people and see if you can develop a relationship with them, and if you vibe, because there's some people you're going to meet with where you're going to leave lunch and you're just going to think, well, that didn't go so well.
Mhm.
But there's other people you're going to meet with where you're like, wow, that's the kind of person, like, I could see them coming over to my house for dinner on a Saturday with our families hanging out. So I think to really answer your question, number one is identify who your client is really clearly. If you haven't already, sit down and just think, who is my focus here? Who is my client? And then think about the relationships and how you can start establishing relationships with people. And Colorado, to me, like, I just knew when I moved here that I just felt like these were my people. I just felt like, these are the kind of people I like to hang out with. And everywhere you go geographically, it's just kind of, people are just different. New Yorkers are different than people who live in San Diego versus Portland versus Boulder. You just got to figure out, who your people are.
Speaking of the market, a lot of investors and realtors kind of tune into our podcast and are always curious about other markets. Can you just give us a quick, rough idea of what investors are looking at in your market and what you're kind of seeing for not necessarily just out of state investors, but people, your clients that are investing?
Yeah, I think there's a couple types of investors that we work with here. I kind of break them down to like maybe three different categories. So the first one, because where we live is a college town and there's a couple of college towns around
Mm,
us. The first one would be that we'll call it the kitty condo market, which
okay.
kitty condo market truly is an investor, right? It's someone that's buying a home for one of their children to live in while they go to college.
Hmm.
But the end goal is potentially to turn it into a long-term rental or sell it for a profit. Uh,
Hmm.
but most people that are buying kitty condos are relatively financially savvy, and based on the market that we're in, that's a really strong market. And that's
What's the
typically
entry point? What's the entry point for that?
oh, it depends. So in the Boulder area, you're probably like 500K.
Okay. And is there like a decent amount of volume and turn on those?
There is. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And then if you go north of us to Fort Collins, that's another college town. You're probably like 300, 350
Yeah, because
entry point.
Boulder University is how many students? It's like 50,000. It's huge, right?
Yeah, yeah. CU's like 50,000, and I don't know the stats on it, but I think it's like one of the most popular public state schools in the country. It is
Oh,
just
wow.
has grown to just an enormous school.
You said it was called kitty condos. What are they called?
Yeah, kitty condo. We call them
Oh,
kitty condos. It's
that's
when
the
you're buying
first.
a condo for your kid to live in. Yeah,
Yeah, you're buying a
Oh,
condo, like your
so
parents
there's
buy it. Yeah.
specifically
yeah.
condos, so they're not like single family homes where you get
Most of
roommates.
them are not single families. Yeah,
We've
yeah,
got like one bedroom type thing or two bedrooms,
yeah.
maybe
One to three bedroom.
1 to 3 bedrooms. Okay.
Yep, yep.
And are
Uh,
they pretty tall buildings or are they
no, no. Boulder has a max of 4 stories.
okay?
So I think the only buildings higher than 4 stories here are dorms for the university. But as far as construction is concerned, condos are going to buy 4 stories.
4 stories. And financing wise, are you pretty much, it's easy to do conventional loans on most of those in town, or are
Yeah,
you
what's crazy is Fannie Mae has a very specific program for it. It's called Family Opportunity.
right?
And that program works for kitty condo. It
Mhm.
works for if you're moving your parents closer to you, and it works for if you have a disabled child or like a sibling.
Yeah, I love the family opportunity mortgage. Do you want to
Yeah,
talk about it really quick? Because it's actually a super useful investment product that
it is.
not
Yeah.
not many people have heard of. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we'll start with the college one. So if your kid's going to go to college, you can buy a property and it's classified as a second home because even though you might rent a bedroom or two, theoretically you're carrying the entire obligation as far as monthly payments are concerned. So you can buy it with less money down and you can buy it as a second home. If you're buying one to move your parents closer, you can also buy as a primary residence, which is amazing as well. So if someone has aging parents and they want to move them closer, they can do that also. And disabled sibling is the same. So yeah, you're either buying as a primary residence or a second home, which means you're getting lower interest rates than you would if it was an investment property.
Lower interest rates, you can get gift funds, just more general, more favorable
Yeah,
terms. Yeah.
that's right. Less down payment. That's another caveat in there as well.
And I'm guessing Boulder has a decent amount of foreign students that attend the school there. Do you sometimes get investors from like overseas that are trying to pull out mortgages on condos as well here too, or is that
There are, yeah, a lot of international investors that we see just pay cash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just make it easy.
because yeah, it's just how it goes.
Yeah.
The world is different outside the United States. People save money and then they just pay cash.
Well,
So
and most countries don't have the option of a 30-year fixed mortgage.
that's right.
So it's kind of like a
Exactly.
different mindset.
Exactly. So me personally, for what we see, we don't see a lot of international investors financing a place for their kid to live in when they're going to college, but the acquisitions definitely do exist.
Is there a reason for that outside of like maybe their own personal beliefs? And is it common for all of these international parents to save that much money, or can you work with a type of product for these types of what do you call it, clients?
Yeah, no, there's definitely would be loan programs that would be available for them. If you're truly, if you're not a U.S. citizen, if you don't have a permanent resident alien card, at that point in time, you'd be considered a foreign national borrower. And there are loan programs available for foreign national borrowers. Depending on the program, it's like 25 to 35% down. But we really see most people in that level, they just pay cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
they're,
and typically, like oftentimes, not always, but when you're going to school abroad, you're usually of means. I mean, that's not
right.
the case for everyone. I mean, some students are here for
No,
scholarships, obviously, but
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say is you're 100% correct. If someone has the ability to send their kid to another country for school, especially in the U.S., especially to CU Boulder, they're probably fairly affluent. I mean, of course, their kid could have gotten um, scholarship for school, but if they didn't get that, then they're probably doing okay financially.
I mean, there's funny stories at the University of Oregon. There's like a Chinese students Lambo club or something like
I
that.
believe it. Yeah, and I'm not like University of Oregon. So that's in Eugene, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the second place we looked at in addition to moving to Boulder. And Eugene is an amazing school. Like their business school, their accounting school is phenomenal. So I'm definitely not surprised to hear that about the Lambo Club.
It's a totally different real estate market than Boulder for sure.
Yes.
There's kind of a dearth of housing there in terms of like availability. We don't have the kitty condos available.
Yeah, and I mean, I
Yep.
think of Boulder as kind of like not an I don't want to say an offshoot of Denver, but you're right next
Yeah.
to Denver, right? So there's a lot of people
Yeah.
who kind of flow that direction when if they're getting priced out of Denver
Absolutely.
metro area.
Yeah, yeah. We're only about 15 miles away from Denver, but between Boulder and Denver, there's a highway, and it's kind of urban sprawl on both sides.
Mm.
So there is opportunity for real estate purchases between the Boulder and Denver market.
So it's 15 miles. What is the traffic situation like between the two? Like if people are commuting?
It's really not bad. It depends on if there's snow, if there's no snow.
Hmm.
I mean, you can make it in 25, 30 minutes. It
Oh,
could take you 45 minutes.
okay. So even in rush hour, it's not bad.
It's not bad. No, not at
Interesting.
all. Yeah.
All right, let's take a step back here and talk more about, okay, after you've moved to Colorado, you kind of recovered financially a little bit, you're starting to decide to want to invest in real estate again. What was now with your experience of having lost everything, and then also with your experience seeing your clients, seeing what worked for certain clients, what
Yep.
didn't work, how did you decide to start rebuilding your portfolio in a more intentional way, I guess?
Originally started more with fix and flip transactions
Hmm.
because they were just a way to kind of continually infuse capital,
Mm-hmm.
and then it progressed to a rental acquisition from there. But if fix and flips, it's a beast of its own, and
Yeah, what made you decide to want to do that? Did you have a particular partner that was a contractor, or do you have contracting knowledge, or how did that come about?
no, I did a bunch in Florida previously,
Hmm.
so I just had a lot of experience from the fix and flip market in Florida.
Okay.
And then, for me, fix and flips, kind of the only way to get back into the game is to start doing them
Hmm.
because you have to start meeting the right people, the right plumbers, the right electricians. You got to figure out the flow.
Hmm.
What do you need permits for? What do you not? So just from having the experience previously, it made it relatively easy to segue back into that process as well. And it's still hard work. You have to learn the players in the game, but it was the prior experience. And probably if you've never done it before, you want to have a mentor that's going to help
Oh,
you in the process
yeah.
because you can make a lot of mistakes. You can spend a lot of money that you don't need to spend without a mentor.
Yeah, you can spend a lot of money on the wrong contractor. I've been there many times, and when you find the right one, you hang on for dear life, and
That's right.
that's your guy. So I've been
Yeah. Yeah. Or you could just spend money on unneeded renovations or
Right.
spending too much money on renovations because I think a lot of people in the fix and flip market, especially if you're not a professional, right? If you have other jobs and this is like your side hustle, a lot of people are doing these homes for how they want them.
Yeah.
And, there might be something that I would do in a home for me that just is, it doesn't resonate with someone else, or it's just not worth spending the money on. Perhaps I would overspend on something for myself, but if I'm going to resell it, there's just no return on investment for it. So I think having a mentor in that space is really important to have people kind of help ground you and really keep you from making very expensive mistakes because expensive mistakes add up very, very quickly.
I was gonna say, I mean, I have to tell my clients all the time, this is not HGTV.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
don't want to install too much of your personality into a home because
Yeah.
that's your personality. It's not for everybody. So we need to, I don't want to say cookie cutter. It depends on what level
Yeah.
flip you're doing. Are you doing a
Yeah.
luxury flip? Are you doing a rental flip? You definitely don't want to add all the fun colors and all the weird fixtures that are gonna
Yeah.
scare a good portion of the people away.
Yeah, no, you're right. You have to keep it very general because the reality is someone could change your light fixture. If your light fixture was too bland, they could spice it up for themselves.
Yeah.
But if you make it too spicy, you might turn people off. So it's just it's finding that right balance. And the challenge is, if you love doing it, you kind of want to put your own touch on it. But the truth is, it just needs to be kind of very a base level general to appeal to the masses.
I mean, maybe if you're like a luxury flipper and people know your brand and
That's
they
right.
know your style, sure, go for it.
Yeah,
But if you're Joe Schmo off the street and you want to do luxury,
yeah,
I mean, I would
yeah,
say the blandest luxury you can.
yeah. But
You don't,
luxury flipping in Boulder is 5 million plus price tag.
yeah.
So if you want to be a luxury flipper, you have to be financially prepared for that. And that's not a risky game you want to play, hoping that someone likes your product, you know?
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
then just stepping back from obviously $5 million flips, let's go to the first
And
time.
I should clarify, I don't do $5 million flips. I am not a luxury flipper. That is out of my ball game. I think to me, that's a full-time job. You're now, you're doing one, two, three of those a year, and that's your full focus. But that's not what I do.
Oh yeah. No, stepping back all the way to maybe the first time home buyer, the first time
Yeah.
investor. I know you had a very interesting story of getting into the market. I know rates are high. How can an investor make sense of this market?
So do you mean like from a first-time home buyer or someone
First time
that's
home buyer
or
who
both?
who wants to build their asset.
Their longer term plan is to build
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
a small investment
For
profile.
sure. I would say almost rates are irrelevant to some level because it's just out of our control. So what you can control is the asset you want to acquire. And then we look at the three L's, which is location. Everyone thinks it's location, location, location. I look at the three L's as location, layout, and light. So what is the location of the asset you want to acquire? What is the layout? Does it flow really well? Anyone that walks into that property, do they just feel like, wow, this flows really well? And then light, what is your natural light? So if you're a first-time home buyer, my suggestion is always it's layout, light, location, whatever three, but all three are equally as important, so it doesn't matter which way you say them. And then at that point in time, it's just really, you have to begin with the end in mind. A lot of first-time home buyers are very focused on, and I was probably guilty of this in the beginning as well. I'm going to buy a home. This is my forever home. Everyone thinks this is their forever home. It's never your forever home, right? The first time I bought, I think I sold like 3 years later, and I bought another house. And I swore like I was in love with that house. It was my forever home, and it wasn't. So I think it's a first-time home buyer is first of all starting to change your mindset of, hey, I want to be an investor. I really want to start accumulating wealth through real estate. And if I want to accumulate wealth through real estate and I'm going to make my first purchase for me to live in, what does it look like to begin with the end in mind? So if I'm going to live in this home for 5 years or whatever that number is going to be, when I move out, what does it look like as a rental? Can I rent it? Is there an HOA? Is there something I need to pay attention to as far as the condo association is concerned? But really starting to think forward in your life financially and where you're going to go with the end in mind. Also, if you're going to buy your first home right now with 5% down and you're going to own this home for 5 or 7 years, potentially you could refinance. You have 20% of equity in the home, refinance before you move out, get rid of PMI, lower your monthly payment. During that course of time, you're saving up your next 5 or 10% down, and then you could go buy another property from there. So I have one client right now, he's on his 5th property. So he bought, first he bought a 1-bedroom to live in, 5% down, lived there for a couple of years, bought another 1-bedroom, 5% down. Then he said, oh, I want a roommate. The only way I can actually get a bigger property is if I get a roommate. So then he bought a 3rd property. He rented out the first 2, bought a 3rd property, got a roommate. So now he's at 3. Then he said, well, I could get one more roommate and I could get a 3-bedroom. So then he bought his 4th property. So now he's got 4 attached properties. And then he saved money again and moved into a 5th one with his girlfriend. So now he's got 5 properties. He started investing when he was 23 years old.
Wow.
And it came out as a first-time home buyer, bought his first place with 5% down. So, he had vision and what he wanted to accomplish. I think that's part of it as well is you have to have, some vision or people like you all to surround yourself with that are helping you think differently. Like our parents, for example, all of our parents, a lot of them aren't real estate investors. So a lot of us didn't grow up with our parents saying, hey, you should buy this and turn it to a rental and go buy another one. That's just not how a lot of people are raised. So surrounding yourself with people that are visionaries as well, especially in the real estate game, I think is really important.
Yeah, I was going to mention that that is super important. When I was a first time home buyer, I wasn't thinking about investing at all. If anything, I was
No.
forced into it. But I had an amazing realtor, an amazing lender who kind of just guided me through the process.
Yep.
And I always make this joke that I fell ass backwards into real estate investing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, the first house I bought, FHA loan limit at the time was 115,593. That's crazy, right?
Wow.
That means the highest FHA loan you could get was $115,593. And the house I bought was like 125. I wasn't thinking about investing. I sold that house and bought another house, but I remember this guy came into my office and he was electrician and he was buying two rental properties. And I remember meeting this guy and he was just a blue collar worker, had saved his money, and he found this off market. It was a single family residence and a duplex next to each other, and an older woman that had just taken meticulous care of them and wanted to sell them. And it just completely opened my eyes that this gentleman who was just really hard working and saved his money was about to acquire two rental properties. And it just blew me away. And that really just, I realized right there, if he can do it, I can do it, or anyone can do it. It's just what you focus on expands.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you're in Boulder, and I believe Bigger Pockets is out there. Their headquarters is out in your area. Are you familiar with Bigger
I'm
Pockets?
not familiar with them, no.
Okay, yeah, they're in basically an investing forum. They're probably the biggest investing podcast on basically all of the podcasts. So
Okay.
check them out. But so I get a lot of clients from Bigger Pockets, and the first thing they say to me is, "I want to cash flow."
Yep.
Can you talk about your feelings about cash flow, especially in this market?
Cash flow is really tough. And, cash flow is tough from the perspective of if you want to buy an investment property and you want to put down 25%, there's a great chance it's not going to cash flow, especially if you're buying something at market rate. But about 10 years ago, a realtor I worked with who retired at 54, owning investment properties, very successful realtor. I think he had like 11 to 13 properties by the time he retired at 54. We would look at investment properties and run numbers, and he would say, if you bought this property today and you lost $300 a month, would you still buy it? Right? And my gut reaction always was no, because who thinks that I'm just going to keep spending $300 a month to buy this home? So then we would sit down and we would say, okay, well, let's first run an appreciation calculator. If you buy this property today and you own it for 10 years and it appreciates at 4 or 5%, some conservative number, what is that going to look like 10 years from now? All right. And then the second thing is based on the location that we're in, how much are rents going up on an annual basis? And how long does it take you from losing $300 a month to $200 a month to $100 a month to break even to then become profitable? And you quickly realize that if your goal is to hold this property under this example for 10 years, the upside due to appreciation is substantial, even if you're spending $300 a month out of your pocket. But B, if you can manage it well and over time you can raise rents at a reasonable level, you will get to a point to where you're break even and then cash flow positive. And if you look at 10-year of ownership with appreciation, even where you spent money out of your pocket every month, for sure you're still coming out ahead at the end. And so a lot of people I think are very focused on, well, what's my cash flow right now? And which I very much understand because I think cash flow is important. But I'm always looking at it as, well, what is the long-term hold here? How long are we going to hold it for? And if we have it for 10 years, what's the end result look like? So, I think it circles back to beginning with the end in mind. And of course, there's, modeling in there and trying to predict what's going to happen. But I think if you model and you predict conservatively, that, ideally you'll do okay at the end.
Yeah, no, and obviously situations can change, rates can drop. There's so many things that happen over 10 years. Not that I tell people not to forecast, which,
Right. Yeah. I mean, circle back to that Bow Harbor property I told you that I lost in foreclosure, right? That sold for like 650 and change in the courthouse steps. Imagine if I had held on to that property, if I could have had a tenant in there and I broke even or I lost a little bit of money per month and now it sells for 3.7. That was from like '09 to today. that's a huge gain. So sometimes you have to weather a storm, but if you have the ability to weather a storm and retain ownership long term, it's definitely worthwhile.
And do you still do business in Florida as well?
We do some. So I am still licensed in Florida. I don't do any marketing there.
Yeah.
We still get clients that call us that we've worked with for many years. I actually just helped a gentleman refinance
Mhm.
who I helped buy his home in Naples, Florida back in like '02, '03. I still have another client that I work with. I just helped him buy a house. He was someone I helped buy a house in like '99. So we still, there is power in staying in contact with your client database. Don't ever underestimate the power of staying in contact with people. But our focus is really the Colorado market.
Mhm.
Yeah, and talking about your business in Colorado, you said you're the number one team now in the Boulder, Colorado
Yep.
area, right?
Yep.
And you have investment properties, and it sounds like you're doing quite well. What kind of drives you to continue to do what you're doing?
I want to be number one in Colorado,
Oh, the whole state.
the whole state. That's the drive right there. And that's the goal. So I'm 47 years old. I feel like we made some good traction so far, but I also feel like we're just starting. And it's at the end of the day, it's we get to create our own destiny here. And I feel like if I work really hard, retirement could look really good. So every day I'm just waking up and just keep swinging the bat. And the goal is number one in Colorado, but the goal past that is some version of retirement. I'm not really sure how that looks yet. We'll have to wait and see. That's
And
a hard one to figure out.
are you still doing your cold calling realtors? Is that still part of your practice? Like, I know that's how you said you started when you first moved to Boulder. Is that still one of your methods?
So I've shifted from cold calling. Now we do a lot of classes and training for realtors. So we've shifted over to how do we help realtors be successful in the marketplace and how do we train them? And we're moving into an opportunity now with this NAR settlement where realtors will need more guidance and training than ever before. So I feel like, we have to be the calm in the storm and we have to help really arm them and give them an arsenal to assist them in continuing to be successful in the marketplace. So I don't cold call anymore. I'm not against it. I mean, if there was a reason, I would sit here and call 100 people. I do live on the phone. I make a lot of phone calls, and I think that communication is pivotal in our success. And but with that, we're really more honed in and focused on helping people right now.
Speaking of the settlement, did you guys already have broker agreements, buyers agents agreements with their clients in your market before this happened, or is that going to be new for you guys?
No, we have had buyer agency agreements in the marketplace. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of in like a funky place right now. I'm not a licensed realtor. I
Right.
should tell you that, but I think it's kind of funky where it's like, of course, this is all over the media. You
Mhm.
probably have some people that are in a buyer agency agreement that had already agreed to the 2.8 or 3% fee. I think you're kind of in an area that's like those buyer agency agreements are maybe going to, work towards expiring and new ones getting signed. So it's a little bit shifty right now.
And have you been seeing any different behavior among your clients your buyers in terms of like the way they're wanting to be represented or the way they're making offers at all?
I have not yet. I think it's going to be a little time in front of us before we start seeing that.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a learning curve in here, and I haven't seen really any buyer feedback yet on how they want to handle it. Sellers, on the other hand, I have definitely heard
Hmm.
sellers say, "I'm going to sell my house. I don't want to pay a realtor, a buyer's agent." I think it's for what I can see, the shift is happening quicker on the seller mentality
Yeah.
than the buyer side. But the buyer side that will change pretty quickly. It will start picking up there.
Yeah, I'll say I'm on a Facebook group of realtors in Oregon and Washington, and we're starting to see people just posting, "Look, somebody's doing 0% BAC."
Yeah,
It's starting to happen slowly. And I mean, my personal thoughts is it can be a little short-sighted. If starting being the first mover in this market of doing that,
yep,
they're still being displayed, and those agents are going to balk. And as much as we want to be as much as we want to think of every agent as being a fiduciary, that might not always be true, personally with their own personal situation because they have to put
right,
food on the table. So
sure.
it's going to be, I think there's going to be a little bit of a rough time as we start making this transition.
There definitely is. I would agree with you on that. And but you think about it this way. So I don't remember what year it was, but you had stockbrokers go through a situation where they were getting huge commissions, right? And like, they were just getting paid so much money, and then there was reform, and all of that changed. All right. So, and then you look at mortgage lenders. Mortgage lenders 08, 09 were making huge commissions per loan. 2011, Dodd-Frank Reform Act through the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau changed everything in mortgage lending, and our incomes were slashed like, I don't know, depending on what you do, 50 to 70%. Right? That's a huge thing. We're still here. So, it's just change that's taking place in the marketplace, and people adapt, and you figure out ways to continue to be successful.
Yeah. Good opportunity to hone your negotiation skills, right?
I think it all comes down to your presentation, scripting and presentation. And I unfortunately think that 9 out of 10 realtors don't have presentation skills. And I just think that, and I don't say that to criticize them, you haven't had to, right? Because the seller paid a real estate commission. So you never had to be in a position where you had to provide your unique value proposition and really show someone what you're going to do for them and how you're going to help them. And I think that, 1 out of 10 realtors has really tight presentation skills. They've already been doing really tight buyer presentations, whether this NAR settlement was there or not. They've already been doing these. It's been, kind of in their business model, and those people are going to really excel. Then you're going to have a small amount of people that realize that there's value in a unique value proposition, and they're going to see value in creating presentations and scripts. And then there's going to be, unfortunately, probably a large group of people that just won't find value there, and I think they're really going to struggle. So yeah, some are really going to excel at this.
Yeah, no, I believe that, and I also have a feeling that listing agents who already do that negotiation with their sellers who are working with buyers are going to be just fine, because they already have to put those numbers up front in front of
That's
them.
right.
Yeah, listing
Absolutely.
agents are used to that presentation.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of let's just say this buyers agents who will be very uncomfortable talking numbers with people, saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, this is the cost of my services," because
that's
we
right.
had to do that before.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of change. I think you're going to see a lot of flat fee representation on the buyer, potentially in the seller side. Fee negotiation. It's going to be a lot of change really quickly, for sure.
I mean, I did want to ask, do you see any changes on the loan front because of this change to help buyers adjust to that?
I haven't seen anything. So as soon as this happened, the owner of our company, Ron Leonhardt, called Fannie and Freddie and asked them what their plans are. And Fannie and Freddie clearly told him, we have no plans right now. We need to wait and see what happens with the settlement. So,
I mean, what are you going to do? You can put 3% down on a loan, and then put another 2.5% down for a buyer.
Right.
Like, nobody wants to be in that position, right? It's already tenuous enough, but
Yeah.
maybe there'll be some adjustment, but it seems
yeah,
that seems
Exactly.
unlikely.
It does. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen in the lending world, but no one's taking a stance right now. For sure, everyone's looking at it, but no one's taking a stance.
I mean, when was the last time they changed LTV guidelines? Like,
It's been a long time. Yeah, it's been a long time. So
I mean, they
and
played a little bit
currently,
with pricing, but they haven't changed LTV.
that's right. Yeah, and before this, Fannie, Freddie, the agencies did not let you finance real estate commissions. So I don't know. I would say my prediction is I would be surprised if we see Fannie, Freddie adjust their guidelines to start financing real estate commissions, right? Because just like you said, if you put down 3% and you want to finance 3%, now it's 100% financing, and that goes against what they do. That impacts private mortgage insurance factors. So again, that's just a prediction. I have no basis for that statement. It's just I would be shocked to see them do that.
And ultimately, there's always the method of, just like when you have a buyer that can't afford closing costs.
That's right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
adjust that, you negotiate a different sales price and ask for closing costs
Yeah.
to that seller, right? It's the same idea.
That's right. Yeah, the reality is there's going to be a whole group of people that are complacent and they're just going to get run over. And then there's going to be a whole group of people that embrace change, and they're looking at this and they have been salivating for this to happen, and they've been waiting for this change to take place, and they're completely going to capitalize on this whole situation. And it's just a matter of, do you embrace change? Are you okay with restructuring your business? And if you can embrace change, this is going to be a tough time.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of looking forward to a lot of the agents that kind of fall out of the business, and the ones who provide value to stay. I mean, like I said, I think there's enough business for everyone, especially the good
Yeah.
agent.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. I think about like our business. So I realized a year and a half ago or whatever, mortgage rates were moving up, right? It was very easy to sell mortgages when they were 3%. No one even cared about rate. You just like, where do I sign?
Right.
Right. So mortgage rates move higher. All of a sudden, people care about rate, right? So then we restructure our process. So now we do a pre-purchase consultation, right? So that's a Zoom meeting with them, leading into the pre-approval. Then once they're pre-approved, I do a home buying strategy session, again on Zoom. We're talking about interest rates, pre-approvals, looking at a total cost analysis. How do we help your win? How do multiple offers work? What do 2-1 buy downs look like? So I'm on Zoom with our clients. And then when they're in a contract, we do our contract meeting, which is the timeline you're going to go through, locking interest rates, et cetera. I never did 3 Zoom meetings with a buyer before because rates were 3%. You didn't have to. But as rates went higher, we had to adjust and adapt our business, and it was all about education, right? So for realtors with this NAR change, you never had to worry about it before because they would sign a buyer agency agreement because the seller paid the commission, right? That was me before. I didn't have to do Zoom meetings because rates were 3%. Anybody would sign. Now my market shifts and I have to figure out how do I adapt into the marketplace and how do we stay relevant? How do we educate buyers and how do we make them feel educated, confident, and comfortable in the process? So I think realtors, there's going to be a definite solid group in there that's going to embrace change, kind of like what I just described. They're going to knock the ball out of the park. They're going to crush it. But there's a lot of people I talk with and they're like, well, I don't want to be on Zoom. I don't like being on video or whatever their reasons are. They're going to struggle. It's going to come down to presentations and scripting. And, what are your presentations?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like I said, hopefully I'm one of the realtors that gets to stick around.
Yeah. Just think about it like this. How many free throws does Michael Jordan take to practice? Thousands, right? And he still stands up and he misses a free throw or did, right? It's just our business is no different. It's you have to put in the time and practice. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's tough to role play with people. It's hard to call Jordan on Zoom and pretend he's a client and really hone your presentation skill. But the people that practice, they're going to crush it. They're just going to like knock the ball out of the park.
Yeah. And speaking of adapting and embracing change, is there anything in your business now that you're doing that you feel like is completely different than 5 years ago? Are you incorporating AI in a specific way, or is there you have some different follow up with clients and realtors that you never thought of doing when you were early on in your career?
It's funny, the biggest change we've made that's been the most impactful that actually pulls me back to the earlier parts of my career is we now strive to do every pre-approval application over the phone. That's the biggest change that we've made last year going into this year. Because if you just send people an email and you give them a link, A, it's confusing, B, they're tired after work, they get busy, whatever it is. And if you just do it over the phone with them, you can figure out all the right questions to ask. It lets you build relationship with them and it lets you kind of learn the ins and outs of the transaction. So it's kind of funny if you think like, well, what are we doing? AI, et cetera. We've actually pulled it back more towards the roots. And I have just lost track of how many people, when I say this is our pre-approval process, do you have 10 minutes now? They're ecstatic. It actually keeps blowing me away how happy people are to just do it over the phone with you real quick. That's the biggest change we've made, which I never thought. I'm a huge technology guy. I think technology just keeps running the world. And it's funny to see of all the technology we have, that simple thing pulling it back. And we're at a 99% conversion rate of people I talk to on the phone that apply. That's a huge conversion rate.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So it hasn't been technology that's done it for us. It's actually kind of been, you got to figure out the pain in your clients, right? Whether you're a realtor or a lender or an investor, or whatever it is, what's the pain? What's their pain point? And how do you solve the pain point? Well, we realized the pain point was people didn't like applying online. They didn't like linking their bank accounts. They didn't like trying to figure out the information. Their pain point was there wasn't simplicity in the process, right? In real estate, what's their pain point? It's going to be they're lost. They don't know how fees work. They don't know what the NAR settlement means. They don't know, they've never had an opportunity for a realtor to explain to them, okay, yes, I show you houses, but let me show you the other 40 things I'm going to do for you in this process. Negotiate on your behalf, help you line up inspectors, help you figure out, who your subs are after you close if you want to do remodeling, help you understand what title insurance is. Like the list goes on and on and on. So I think regardless of technology, and however you want to use it, AI or not, it still comes down to like, what is the pain your client's experiencing and how do you solve their pain points?
Yeah, I was gonna say removing barriers is super key in everything that we do in terms of getting people over the hump. What you're
Yeah.
holding them through the process to make them feel comfortable. I used to work in tech, so thing that we always had in UI design is if they have to click that button twice, they're gonna
Yep.
fall off like 50% of them. So you
That's
try to
right.
remove every single barrier you can along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like maybe like first time homebuyer seminars. I think I think first time homebuyer seminar and investor seminars, especially first time homebuyer seminars, will be huge. The reason why I say that is because a first time homebuyer that doesn't know how their realtor is going to get paid and is unsure how that works, that's a very nervous situation to put them in. And I think that where people could just Google a lot over the last several years and figure out what's going on, there's going to be a void of information and there's an opportunity to educate people there.
Yeah, no, I see a lot of value in that. If we did those consultations or seminars telling people like, hey, like, don't, you might have to come up with this 2.5%, but these are the things we can do to kind of avoid that in terms of
Yep,
negotiating the contract, et cetera, to give them a little bit more security. It will get a lot of people to feel more comfortable moving forward in this new world.
absolutely. Yeah, it's just education. Just got to educate people. Find their pain point and educate them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we ask this question to all our guests, but if you were to advise somebody that was looking to get started in investing, like with their first investment property, what would be kind of your go-to, or what do you think is the path of least resistance?
Number one, find the absolute best realtor you can that knows investment properties, right? Because if you are new into the game, you have to have a trusted professional you can lean on.
Yeah.
So hands down for me, number one is find a realtor that's almost like a mentor to you, and they can really and lean into them to learn about the process, and then figure out from them what does your level of investing look like. Are you a buy and hold? Do you want rentals? Do you just want to do a light fix and flip? Learn from them the pros and cons of each side. Figure out what resonates with you financially. I think number one is the realtor, and then figure out what you love there. And then number two would be go back to the lender and use the lender that the realtor recommends you to use, right? If your realtor says, this is why I use Jordan, let me tell you why Jordan's the best, you should call Jordan. Don't go Google cheapmortgage.com, because cheapmortgage.com is not going to align and give you the same advice that Steven's telling you. So I really think it's assembling your team. Also, if you need to, figure out who a good real estate attorney is, just for structuring of trust, wills, etc. Assemble your team. Find a good insurance agent, right? You got to figure out the key people on your team, but a lot of people don't even know that. So the first step is find the best realtor you can that can help educate you and help tell you, now talk to a lender, now find an insurance agent, now find a real estate attorney, and really go from there. I think the seed is all in the realtor.
Yeah. I'll take on the brunt of that.
Great advice. I mean, it is like my personal experience, the first home that I bought, it was a huge difference when I switched realtors from someone that was loosely recommended to us that didn't turn out well to someone that we actively sought out, and it made a huge difference. And
yeah, for
I'm
sure.
that's the case for most people.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to know info about the marketplace. If you're a good active realtor, you're going to know like, hey, don't buy this condo because there's a pending assessment coming for $40,000 to fix all the balconies here. I know you love this place. I know the kitchen is redone. I know you think it's a great deal, but I'm telling you, I know about this $40,000 assessment. Let's go look at this property. And here's why I think this is a better investment for you. And you need a really great, honest realtor. Some realtors, and this is not the bash realtors, some realtors will let you buy the property with a $40,000 assessment. They just might not know any better. A really great realtor is going to be super dialed in the market, and they're going to keep you from making mistakes. So the mortgage lender is good. The realtor is more important.
Oh, that's good to know.
No, yeah, I mean, it's that the realtor has that insider knowledge. I mean, that's the whole point of hiring a realtor, right?
Right.
It's because that they'll give you that knowledge that you don't have.
Yeah,
that's right.
We have to have the integrity to sometimes talk people out of a home, or at least give them information.
Yeah. I always say a great realtor is someone that's a fierce advocate for their client and they're very much okay saying, don't buy this home, here's why, don't buy it, and we're going to go find you a better home. That's a fierce advocate. And as an investor, especially a new investor, that's what you need.
Yeah, sounds great. And Brian, if people are looking to find you on social media or get a hold of you, what is the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so my website is just brianmanningteam.com, Brian with an I. And then Instagram is at Brian Manning Team.
Okay, great.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Brian, we really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your story. Thank you again so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, take care.